Hey Sam.
Hey, Brad, how's it going? I did hear some interesting stats. I did hear some interesting stats. Do you know that something like mid 30% of Americans are already sort of self-employed or contractors? It's they work as contractors, like mid 30s or something. I found that kind of amazing. Like they're kind of like contractors or entrepreneurs or YouTubers or like all of these new sort of digital first businesses.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I thought that was very high. It might even be high 30% or something. And that's quite telling, isn't it? I feel like that has to increase. Like that's going to increase. There's no such thing as job security anymore. Like there's no such thing as job
Right.
security in a large company anymore. There hasn't been for years. Um, and I think that this fractional work environment where you sort of just plug in here and you plug in here is just being made even easier with AI. Like it really is. It really is. There's more marketplaces than ever to connect with people. There's more avenues to market yourself than ever before. So I think that that's just going to continue. I think entrepreneurship or mini entrepreneurship or fractional contracting your skills out to lots of different people in lots of different ways is going to become even bigger. I think it's going to become much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really interesting here, in terms of the change I've seen across generations, that it's like when, that I think, my generation here was really probably the last one that had like persistent careers in a particular organization or field,
Mm,
and what I see now is just, like with my nieces and nephews, most of them have a lot of different stuff going on.
mm,
It's like they've maybe got, kind of the base job, but then they're doing, entrepreneurial real estate stuff, and they're doing, some tech stuff, and
mm,
it's really interesting to watch, like my friend's kids, kind of having all these, these side gigs and contract roles and, things
mm.
they're trying out. And I think it's really fascinating. It's a totally different work model than I grew up with. But I actually, and there's not the security and predictability to it that, that I had, but in some sense, you look at it from kind of the learning and you kind of having the opportunity to try a lot of different things, and they're
Yeah.
not being, I mean, I very much felt like when I was coming out of school that, like, you had to be in a job for, X number of years or it was going to look really, really suspect. And
Mm,
now it's like people just jump around, and it's like there's no stigma to, being in a job for a year. Um, it's like it's experience gained. It's, it maybe is something you tried, moved on from that, kind of built it into something else. And
mm.
that fluidity in roles, I think as I say, I see it a lot in the younger folks I know here. And I don't know if it's as prevalent in other countries, but it definitely seems to be the way things are moving here.
Yeah, I just think it's gonna that just like there's an acceleration, there's a power law. I think there's gonna be an acceleration in that too. You know, I think the reality is, maybe there's like a lot of companies gonna realize, well, why am I paying this person $100,000 when I can get AI to do the bulk of it for $10,000 or something, or maybe even less. But then I think that person who is earning that salary is like, well, I've got these skills and knowledge and I can orchestrate these agents to do all of these new things and build software. Like I'm probably better off. I could probably earn 200 or $300,000 trying to plug that into lots of other like companies. Like I kind of see that playing out on a macro level. Um, like even if I think about what I'm doing, right? Like, so we have got enterprise DNA, but I'm also now in another, I'm now in Help Genie, which is another venture, which I'm partnered with a couple of people on. I think that's got like huge potential. I've also got Omni, where we're developing apps for other people now with ideas. And what else have I got? I've got a couple of other apps that we've developed as well. And so, that's a micro example of what I think actually is going to become quite prevalent, honestly. Like, um, there's so many people sitting within like every sector of the economy that has the knowledge to build some sort of like app or some sort of piece of software that can accelerate what's going on in that sort of sector, right? Like in that sort of area of the economy that was so hard to unlock pre-AI. It was so expensive. It was so hard to connect. It was so hard to market. But a lot of that is becoming more fluid. It's not, I would say it's not becoming easier, but it's becoming more connected. It's all culminating. Um, and yeah, I just think that all culminates to an acceleration of that sort of more entrepreneurial, sort of fractional employment type scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I look at myself, and it's like the thing I'm really spending much of my time doing, with clients is just exactly the stuff I post about and that we talk about is kind of getting people who are really good analysts kind
Mm,
of to the next era of being really great AI driven analysts. And,
yeah.
kind of how to use these tools, how to incorporate it into the flows and methodologies you already know how to do well. And, it's one of those things that, it's like no one company is going to pay somebody like me to just sit in an office, for months on end and do that in-house. I mean, maybe, like when I was talking about Dustin, if you've got an organization that's 800,
Mm,
data analysts, okay, like that's probably worth having somebody in-house to do that. But most organizations have a fraction of that. And they're not gonna need to have somebody full time doing that. But to have somebody
yeah.
come in on, an hourly basis or daily or weekly basis and work with their folks and get them up to speed, get them up the power curve, and maybe to do that for, half a dozen different organizations, each of them is paying you, a portion of your time. It's like there's great business in that. It's like I could be filling my days and nights doing that if I had, time and
Yeah.
energy to do it.
Well, you just like that's, I mean, it's so true, but like, let's just step back a bit, like think high level. Okay, so 10 years ago, that wasn't really possible. 10 years ago, you didn't have, like, you were still using Skype, which was horrific, right? So you couldn't really communicate digitally well. Um, like LinkedIn and YouTube and these other ones were very early days. Like I think they were used early days. It was early days for like showcasing your expertise and getting business from that and stuff. Like they were just sort of emerging. So that's another distribution angle that you can create. And now AI has sort of been layered onto that, where you can like learn and do a variety of things in an accelerated way compared to what you could do, even a few years ago. So it's like a combination. I'm sure there's other things that I'm sort of missing there as well, but like it's just a combination of distribution effects, AI empowering more pivoting to different domains or different things, or understanding certain things. Like so new offerings, the capability to offer new things has accelerated for individuals. Um, yeah. So in summary, I guess like there is the biggest reorganization of work going on that I think we've seen in our lifetimes. There's just no doubt about that. But there's a lot of upside in all of that acceleration. If you're jumping on board and you're sort of seeing it as well. I know it's not easy for everyone, and I know you know um, it's going to be hard for some. But there's you've just got to find a way. You've got to find a new way in this new era.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just, kind of finding what it is that you're passionate about. It's like I think
Mm.
we've both found the things that we love to learn and like, it's like, that um Yeah, yeah. I had an old boss who, we would talk about work, and he'd say the reason they call it work is because if they weren't paying you, you wouldn't do it. And
Mm,
yeah, I kind of feel like these days it's like the things I've found are things I would do even if I wasn't getting paid for it. It's like,
yeah.
and that for 2 years I did them without getting paid for it. And
Mm,
it's so interesting to me, and it's stuff that I'm so passionate about that it's really kind of blurred the line between, work and kind of hobby and entertainment, that
mm,
I
mm.
think you feel the same way. It's kind of like
Yeah.
there's nothing I do that is as much fun as learning the stuff I'm learning on my own.
Yeah, no, I feel very lucky to be able to be in a position to actually spend the time this
Yeah.
new stuff, you know. I do. Um, but it doesn't, obviously you got you're just like anyone else, we've got the pressures to pay the bills and pay the school fees and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
that, obviously that's got to be taken care of at the same time. But there's always a means to an end for me. Like I'm learning this stuff because I see just such an enormous opportunity. There is why am what in, when it comes down to why am I learning Laravel and PHP? Why am I digging into this? Like why am I? Well, I just think the biggest opportunity I've ever seen is this vibe coded wave, right? Like this vibe coded wave. There's just thousands, there's going to be millions maybe of people who are dabbling in this, but won't have the time or desire to take it to their next level. But they'll want to take it to their next level, right? That they'll want to take their app and make it scalable, have a web version, have a mobile version, bring a lot of complexity to what they're doing. But they are 12 months behind me and my developers. They're not going to be able to get up the curve as fast as where we are, and we're just accelerating even more, and they don't have the time. Some people are just really good at sales. Some people are really good at marketing. Some people are just really good at other things. But when you can sort of, and that's fine. But there's just going to be a massive space here for those who are really good at uh, taking apps to another level, right? Taking vibe coded apps to another level. So there's a real reason why I'm personally taking this leap and really doing it, and that's just a micro version, I think, of opportunities everywhere. Like if you were to go to the Microsoft example, right? There is tons of opportunity to become the absolute global expert even now of Power BI combined with Fabric, combined with like other Microsoft tools. Like there's huge, like people are probably are crying out for this, like everywhere, not most people within even large organizations or even medium to small, like they don't have the time to do all this stuff. Like there's just so much opportunity to plug yourself in with AI empowering you on everything and behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was talking to Greg Deckler the other day, and I was saying that every day I'm having the experience of like thinking of things that I've never seen somebody else do before.
Mm,
And it's like, or seen them do in a different context and say, hey, I think this will work in data analysis as well.
yeah,
And kind of using some of the stuff that people are doing in software development and in some ways it's like, kind of watching all the things people did in Claude Code from a software development standpoint and look at that and say, hey, wait a sec, that totally works for data analysis. It might even work better for data analysis than it does for coding. And
yeah.
to kind of think about whatever your area of interest is and the way that kind of merges with these tools and techniques is to me it's just fascinating. I mean, it all goes back to me, to the first time I sat in econometrics course, and the professors came in on the first day and said, the stuff I'm going to show you is going to let you see the way the world works in a way that people who don't know this stuff don't ever get to see. And I remember thinking, that's the coolest freaking thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, I am so in on this. And
Mm,
that was kind of like the lightning bolt moment for me for my love of data analysis. Cause it's like it gives you this kind of almost this magic ability to kind of look behind things and see things that other people don't see. And it's like
mm,
when you can find those ways in which your business operates that are counterintuitive. It's like
mm,
to me that is just that is the biggest kick I've ever gotten out of work. Is
yeah.
to find those things. If somebody goes, well, that's not the way I thought it worked, and you can say it is, and let me show you why. And you can roll out the data, and you've got explanations, and you've got you know hypotheses that are testing out really solidly, and you can say it's not intuitive, but this is what's going on behind the curtain. It's like
Mm,
to me that is the greatest thing in the world, and it's like this just gives you so many more tools to do that, and it's just
yeah.
so interesting. Like you know, Plotly's running this hackathon that is it's kind of a data analysis hackathon where you come up with a data set and a set of questions, and you just use their tools to kind of analyze that question. And
Mm,
I've got one that I think is super cool, and I'm building data set. It's an area I've never really explored before. It's kind of an urban planning question, and
mm,
I'm kind of diving into that, and I'm pulling data sets from sources I've never used before. I'm, running
mm,
analysis, isochrones and spatial
mm,
stuff that I've never run. And it's like, really trying to understand, like, how are modern cities evolving? And it's like the fact that you can just do that and really see at a level you've never seen before, like, what are the factors that affect the livability and financial viability and social vitality of a city is just
mm.
it's fascinating.
I know. I think we're lucky that we're in a space and also in a situation where I don't think any of the things we're doing are being disrupted at all. They're just being like enhanced and empowered, and there's going to be more of it. Like I know that's not the same everywhere, but there's going to be more analysis. There's going to be more software. There's going to be more the web development. Like it's just all just more, 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 more. Um, and I don't know. Like maybe we need to like maybe are we being too romantic about it? Are we being like because when I worked like it's almost a decade ago now, like when I actually worked in a large organization. But sometimes you have to deal with politics. Sometimes you're just going to be sitting in meetings most of the day. Sometimes, you know, certainly from my perspective right now, like AI is diminishing the requirements for a lot of that stuff. Like if I'm being like, thinking like very critically about it. Um, but maybe a lot of the acceleration maybe isn't as much as possible, like in some areas, in some places. But I guess that's the opportunity, right? Like if you can bring in that acceleration, if you can bring the ideas and the ways of working and the ways of doing, um, if you can build the frameworks, if you can build the way that things get done, if you can build the agile, the agile theme of the new AI era within your business, like I guess that's like an opportunity, right? But I don't know. I guess we can be quite romantic about it because we can sit in front of like in our home office and just like spend 2 hours immersed in learning something. But
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I guess
and
we've got to always think about that.
it would be really interesting, just in the way that we had Rob on, last month. It'd be really interesting to have some folks on who are just starting in their careers in this, and
Mm, mm,
get a sense of what is it like for them, is it do they feel that sense of excitement? Do they feel, is it more fear? Is it kind of uncertainty about how this all shakes out? It would be really interesting to talk to somebody, or a few people kind of in that situation, because as much as, I have conversations online, I really haven't talked that much with folks about, those sorts of issues. And I would
mm,
love to, personally, I would love to, have a chat you know, with a few people who are kind of at that beginning stage and trying to crack into, this field, and kind of just hear what is it like? What do they
mm.
feel? Are they excited? Are they demoralized by the way this is going? Do they see a bright future? I mean, it's a conversation I'd love to have.
Yeah, I agree. As I was just saying that, you know what I was thinking? over the last 20 years that I've been sort of working around approximately, I think every opportunity that has come to me, everything that I've done has stemmed from me learning something new, learning a new way of doing things. Um, Yeah, if I really assess like every opportunity to add value or to be seen as valuable or to get a new job or to get a new career, it's all been learning from something new. It's all been learning like new ways of doing things so that you can bring that into the mix. You can bring that into your current employment. You can bring that into your next employer. That to me is sort of like where you want to be, right? I mean, that's sort of that's the position you want to be. You want to be using AI to accelerate your learning and new ways of doing things, like bringing, that just being static is the biggest risk, I think, is the biggest risk. As everything is accelerating around you, if you're just static and you're not enhancing yourself in some way or learning something new, like that's where you run the biggest risk in terms of employment, at least, or value add.
Yeah, it was interesting. Kind of go back to the conversation with Dustin last night. We were talking about that, and we're saying that for both of us, that the real opportunities came. It wasn't just around learning, but it was then sharing that learning.
Mm,
Because there were decades that I spent. I've always been a learner, but
mm,
much of it was pretty insular. I would learn for my own benefit, and then not really share. Maybe the people in my office, but
mm.
never beyond that. And it was really about, 4 years ago when I started, posting on LinkedIn and sharing what I knew and connecting
Mm,
with people around the world doing stuff. That's when the opportunities really arose. And that's when my learning just exploded because you were
mm,
getting this influx of opinions and techniques and approaches that were so much more diverse than kind of the narrow world that I was operating in before. And
mm, mm.
yeah, I I think if anything, that would be for me the lesson would be to really get out in the community and start connecting with people.
Yeah.
Um, that
Yeah,
that's been that's been the biggest force multiplier for me.
yeah, I sometimes think back and just sort of reflect of my own personal journey, right? Like so, and you've been on the journey with me the whole time. But I started creating videos because I was just like loving learning Power BI. I just absolutely loved it. I loved talking about it. It was very natural because I was just learning new things all the time, and I would just like very passionately talk about the new things that I was learning. And then I think it probably got to a point where it just like got a little bit stale, and then the business started growing, and then I was like more deep into the business and optimizing things, and then sort of lost the passion a little bit, and particularly around like Power BI content. Um, and then obviously AI came in and things changed around like the priorities around Power BI within Microsoft and things. So, that passion never really reignited, I would have to say, like and sort of is why, you know, I probably from a mental point of view started exploring other things and looking for new opportunities. Um, and but I'm sort of coming back round. I'm coming back round. Like I'm really loving so much like learning this new stuff and seeing all these new opportunities and just like being powered by AI. I'm like I'm even thinking of starting up like a channel, a side channel just to talk about how you can enhance your vibe coded project to become like this like more advanced and scalable web app or web solution or mobile app solution. And so just like basically offloading all of these new learnings that I am actually getting, and then because there's a real need. There's a real need that has emerged around this, right? Like, there's a lot of people battling away, trying to improve their vibe coded apps. So yeah, it's sort of coming full circle. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do it, but it was an idea that sort of came to mind the other day. So it's just exactly what you just said. Exactly what you said. I was sort of feeling the same way.
And it's funny, here's a great example of that, that my intersection is, AI and data analysis. And I was just talking to somebody who's really into MCP. And he was saying his interaction is MCP and security. He comes from an IT security background, and what he's doing
Mm,
is he's working with enterprise and organizations to implement MCP in a way that is sensible and appropriate for an enterprise. And
yeah.
I was thinking, man, I'd love to, connect with that guy. And we did, and we're starting to talk about, is there something we can do together in that, and it's like
Mm,
just by sharing, it was actually my response to somebody else's, question that he he responded in this really smart way to my response. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I get this question all the time. Like, what's the best way to do X? And he wrote a really good response. And it was like, you know, if it weren't for that sort of, engagement, yeah, I never would have found this guy, and it's like, I'm really excited about the possibility now of, kind of working with somebody who really understands the security aspect.
mm,
And, I could kind of help bring the analysis portion to people who are concerned, saying, hey, I love the stuff you're doing, but I just don't know if it's going to work in my organization where we work on, healthcare, financial stuff that's really, really confidential, really sensitive. And,
mm.
I would love to be able to bridge that gap. I want to ask you, we were talking last time about, social media and kind of working it backwards from instead of the feed from the notification standpoint. I was wondering if
Mm.
you'd started doing that at all and if it's had any impact.
I haven't. I did actually listen back. I listened back on that podcast, I think last Friday, and did remind me of that, but I haven't been going on social just that much. Honestly, I'm so immersed in what I'm doing. Like it's just more so like I don't have the time.
Yeah.
But like I definitely am when I sort of want to get back into it and review it. I definitely will. I did but look, it's 100% right. I mean, I was on LinkedIn yesterday and I clicked off after three scrolls because I just couldn't stand what I was just like more hating on Sam Altman and bloody AI doesn't make financial sense. Just all this garbage, it's all this garbage. Like so, like I've got to do it. I've got to do it because there is all these new things that I want to be connected to the best Laravel and PHP content creator out there, and unless actively do something about it, I'm never going to see it. I'm never going to see that. I,
Right.
I did, I did see many posts about DAX user-defined functions though, with like hundreds and hundreds of likes and everyone like thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread. But I just want to see some new stuff. I truly do. So I've got to be active. I've got to actively do it, or it's not going to happen. Particularly on LinkedIn. But I did want to circle back to MCP. I've connected to a lot of MCPs now in the last like few weeks. MCP is going to be like this is what I MCP is bigger than what everyone's thinking. I think MCP is this going to be this connector. It's going to be this connector of the internal brain of any organization. Because if you think about it, like you'll be able to get to a point where you can just throw everything into a data lake or like I don't know, just even like conversational data, even just like meeting transcripts, just chuck it in somewhere, and you can then sync up your AI through MCP to that brain, to that documentation. That sort of came to me because as I was learning this Laravel and PHP, Laravel just brought out this new connector, this MCP connector called Boost to, I think it connects to like 10,000 documents or something, like 10,000 pages of like resources for best practice Laravel and PHP documentation. I was just like, I was amazed. I was like, well, you could create anything. You could create MCP on anything. Like I could create an MCP based on Enterprise DNA's history and our strategy and like instead of having to have like these massive prompts, why don't I just like have an MCP connection to thousands of documents that are relevant to what we're trying to do. Maybe all of our data that gets updated every day. Like, it's just going to transform. Every business is going to have a brain. They're going to have a brain that basically just sits in behind the organization and that everyone's just going to connect to with their AI clients.
Do you use context 7 or ref in your
I didn't connect to that one, but I did see it because I use Pulse MCP. I went and downloaded all the top Pulse MCP connectors.
Yeah, I mean, the context 7 is one, that basically for whatever framework you're programming in, it
Mm,
pulls the most recent, API specs, documentation, and so
right.
you're always operating off of the current context. And ref is a new one that does that in a dynamic way that doesn't blow your context window apart. Because I
Mm,
heard about today that I didn't realize I was doing this, but I was constantly frustrated with Claude because it would just run out. I mean, I would start a conversation that would run out of tokens. And
mm,
what I realized was my my MCP stack was taking up 57% of my context before I
right.
even typed my first question in. I was running
Mm.
420 tools at the same time. And AI was like, okay, like if you want to do that, that's fine. But you just burned 60% of your context. And
Yeah, see, that's something I still don't quite get because I'm like you. I saw one of my agents was using 20 tools and I was like, what tools is it using? I didn't even know what like I don't even know. This is so emerging. I still have a lot to figure out.
yeah, yeah. And that I wrote about today, kind of how you really have to think about your stack differently. We've always thought of your stack as this fairly concrete fixed thing, which is okay. Like my stack is Excel and Power BI and SQL.
Mm,
It, no, you have to think about your stack now as project by project and even task by task
mm,
because it can be so expensive from a context standpoint to just pile all your tools you know, in your backpack and start working, that
mm,
you really need to think, okay, like how am I going to structure this? And what agent gets what tools? And what tools do I need for this task? And can this task be split into multiple conversations? Or do I need to move to, a bigger context window um, to use all these tools at once? Like when I'm using Superbase um, and Power BI and Obsidian, all at the same time, I have to move to Gemini because if I've got
mm,
all that stuff running, I'll run Claude out of in 2 or 3 questions. Claude and I are done.
right.
Whereas Gemini, I can keep it running longer with that many tools in operation at the same time. But um, yeah, your point about kind of using it to as kind of a knowledge weapon, to make sure you've got all the most current information. And the way I've been using it recently is I've always found web scraping really difficult. Like, when I was trying to write custom web scraping routines in R,
Mm,
there's a package called RVest in Python. It's beautiful soup. That stuff was hard for me to write, and it would take days sometimes of
yeah.
trial and error to get, a complex page scraped. And
Mm,
now it's like I have this MCP server called Bright Data that has 61 tools, and I just send it out and I say, go get me this. And basically, I don't care how you do it, just do it. And it'll solve captchas, it'll circumvent like any blockage. And I sent it out the other day and I need historical information on um AI model costs. And that stuff's hard to scrape because the people who have it don't like people coming in and scraping it. And I just sent it out and 20 minutes later it's like, okay, I'm back. I got it all for you. Here's the data set. And
yeah.
it was like magic, and kind of having the ability to equip your agents and models with these kind of tools. I mean, it opens incredible doors for you to do new stuff.
Yeah. there's an emerging opportunity here as well, is that I think this AI brain for for an organization is going to be a real thing, right? Like you just want to you want to connect and throw everything into the same space, and then you want an MCP server for your particular knowledge base that you can connect to your AI, and then like everyone within your organization could query it on basically anything. This is an emerging opportunity, which is absolutely massive. Like every organization in the world is going to want to have this, right? Like if you think about the proliferation of SaaS products over time. Like I just think about my own business. Like I've got all these SaaS products that run our business, CRMs, things that go through Stripe. All of our just like technology, all of our databases, the way people are finishing courses, like just all this information. It's just like freaking everywhere, right? Like the way you used to, or historically, the way you would try and analyze it is you'd spend a lot of time and money like getting Power BI all sorted out in the semantic model and all this kind of stuff. But it's just going to be the new emerging thing is you're just going to throw this somewhere. You're just going to throw it all in the same place, construct it in a way that MCP server can and put it on an MCP server and then just connect to it in these AI tools. And then these AI tools will go and call the specific parts of it. I don't even know how to set this all up, by the way, but like, I'm just saying, like, I just think this is going to be so big. Like, this is such a huge opportunity. And then, ultimately, you can start building applications and apps that leverage that MCP information, that the information that's flowing through via MCP in these new apps and vibe coded things that you do within your organization. It's a completely new way of like doing things and orchestrating things within organizations, big and small. Like, this is just going to be everywhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, like a smaller scale version of that is what I've got MCP doing with my Obsidian Vault, is that I
Yeah.
have basically the entire history of like everything I've written and thought about for the past 5 years. Like literally, there's not one thing that I've spent any amount of time on that's not fully documented in that 6 gig Obsidian Vault. And I can send my MCP client back in there and have it do any sort of analysis on
Mhm.
basically any thought I've had for the last 5 years. I mean, and
Mhm.
think about if you could do that for an entire organization.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the power of that is incredible.
Yeah. 100%. I just, it's just such it's just huge. I mean, I don't even know how to do, I wouldn't know how to do it exactly right now, but like conceptually, that is just such a huge opportunity. I mean, maybe something I'll get into at some point. Like, I wouldn't rule it out that because we're just moving into this like far more agile future, aren't we? Where, if you were just if I just think about, okay, so first of all, a lot of the unstructured data you could never capture before. You could never capture conversations. You could never capture like a whole lot of data that is now becoming possible with AI. But also, it just used to be so time consuming and costly to actually like compared to just putting it all somewhere like in a lake in a data lake or something. Like it used to be so costly to have to get everything perfect, to have to structure everything, to have to build cement your database model, then your semantic model, then your Power BI model, and then your Power BI reports. And like, I mean, that certainly was better than what came before that. But now I think we're moving into another world where it's just like even faster and even more agile, where AI just sort of empowers every single thing in the loop. Um, yeah, it's gonna look so different and so much more accelerated.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And it's like just thinking about, as we talked about last time, kind of the things that are possible now. Like I could right now, I could go in and I could say, I could say to Claude, I'm curious if I were to do it right now. Um, say based on the information in my Obsidian Vault, trace the 5 biggest ways that my views on data analysis have evolved over the past 4 years. And let me just hit run on that and just so it says 4 years ago you were treating AI ML like it was some mystical voodoo. Now it's raw and uncut integration into every pipeline. You probably went from let me build this dashboard to let me build this self-updating predictive beast. Am I right? And then it said, remember when we thought we'd get pristine data? The real evolution, accepting that data is dirty, like it is building robust systems that can handle the chaos, fuzzy matching, probabilistic approaches. That's where the real data analysts operate. Um, Real time or die. Static reports are dead. The shift from batch processing to streaming analytics changed everything. Power BI's push data sets, DAX measures that don't choke on live data. That's the new kung fu. And then it says visualization ain't everything. Pretty charts don't mean anything if the underlying logic is bad. You evolve from make it look good to make it work good and then make it look good. That's definitely true. The democratization paradox. Everybody's data analysis now it's self-service tools, but this just means more work for real practitioners, cleaning up amateur mistakes. Yeah, I was just talking about this on the Plotly rollout today with the CEO there. We were talking about basically kind of vibe analytics. And, he was saying, is self-service kind of is this the arrival of kind of what we thought of as self-service? And I'm like, it is and it isn't. The tools are there, but you still need the fundamental knowledge to make it work. To ask the right questions, to know the fundamental techniques that you can now ask the system to perform for you. That hasn't changed, and in a way that's become more important. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it actually,
it's impressive. You've definitely got a personality on your AI AI responses.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Um,
Uh,
I will look. I'm actually a believer. I believe that conversational analytics is the true democratization of self-service. It's the true self-service, right? Like, um, Power BI will go down as um, a very initial stage, an early emergence of it, but it never got as far as what conversational analysis is. Conversational analysis is the true democratizer, and I think it's going to bring high level analytics that we thought was quite cool in Power BI to anyone. It's going to bring it to like hundreds of millions more people. I think it absolutely will. There's no doubt. There's really no doubt now. Absolutely, there hasn't been doubt for months, but no doubt at all. And it's going to bring it at a scale unimaginable. So it's exciting. It's really exciting. The other thing that I would just say around your what you just mentioned about having the expertise. My concept there is just intuition. You've still got to have the intuition. You got to build up the intuition around it. And I see it myself. Like as I'm learning all this new sort of web development stuff, I do lack the intuition. I do lack the intuition. I'm getting better every day at understanding exactly what's doing and picking up things that it's missing and things like this. But I still lack the intuition. And so that's how I'm going to elevate myself in this new domain more is I'm going to try get the intuition. And I think that's just like a good word to encapsulate what you were just suggesting.
you know, I thought that was one of the most fascinating things we talked about last time was, and I've been thinking about it nonstop, which is your question about how do you know you're right? Like, how
Mm,
do you know, like, and I was talking about, kind of the independent replication, and you were saying,
mm,
how do you know you and, this other person weren't just making the same mistake and replicating two incorrect analyses? And it's like,
mm,
it really got me thinking about how do you ever know for certain that you're right? And it's a really fascinating question. I'd love to actually kind of revisit that in depth on our next one because
mm,
that one kind of blew my mind the more I thought about it. That I thought, I've always assumed you could say with certainty that okay, this is correct. That if it matches up, it's correct. But
mm,
I think you're right that there is a certain level of intuition you have to build that says this just based on my expertise around this general subject, these things make sense. But
Mm.
at the same time, going back to what I said earlier, which is sometimes the most important takeaways you get from things are the things that aren't intuitive, that are directly counterintuitive, that you're like, whoa, that doesn't work the way I thought it did.
Mm.
Is that because I calculated wrong, or is that because my understanding was wrong? My intuition was bad. Um,
Yeah,
and
it is fascinating.
that's a tough question.
Well, I think like if I was to just think back through my own experiences, is that I think that there is a constant chase for perfection in a lot of things within businesses, within different areas in business. Like there's perfection in analytics, there's perfection in your database, there's like everyone's searching for perfection, but I don't think that exists in a lot of cases. I'm of the I've always been of that viewpoint, is that perfection in business where there's a lot of gray, there's a lot like there is a lot of um unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns. There, an economy is just not perfect. Nothing is totally binary, right? Like there is a lot of imperfections. There's a lot of and so how do you counter that? How do you counter that? How do you actually deal with that? And from the CEO down, it's intuition. It's your intuition that you sort of gather over time through your experiences or your learning or all that kind of stuff. Um, and if we just now go back down to sort of like analytics, right? Um, you know, I've been in my career in so many meetings and I've done so many reports and I've done so much analysis where, I would sit and just present it, or I would be watching it, and and people would be like, "Well, that's not right." Like, is that right? Like, the only way you know that is intuition, and I think it was always the case. It is still now the case with AI, right? Like you're with AI agents, you've got to have the intuition, and it's and again, I just like harp on about my own exploration and this new stuff. It's just like I've got to get the intuition to pick up things quicker of what the AI is doing. Like, are they actually accessing the right toolings? Are they doing the right coding? Like you've got to build the intuition.
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about before about kind of being at the ends of being able to prompt and being able to validate, and I think
Yeah.
some of that validation does come from, just intuition.
But if
But
you're if you're if you if we're going to a world where more and more you're going to be orchestrating agents, you're going to be orchestrating agents doing a variety of different things, which is honestly turning what my job is like my what I'm doing is turning into like I'm just orchestrating agents in a lot of cases. Um, it's just going to become more important. It's going to become more important because you've got all these like mini digital workers, and you've got to be the high level architect that has the right intuition to plug them all in together and to manipulate them effectively to get to your end goal, to get to your outcome. So yeah, it's going to become more important. And
it
and I
reminds
guess
me of one of my favorite quotes from economist GP Box, where all models are wrong, but some models are useful. Yeah, and it really kind of gets to that, which is that, you know, there is a level at which all the stuff is wrong, and that it's an abstraction, it's an estimate of the, kind of a much more complex reality.
well, that's what economics is. This the whole domain of economics is just theories. It's just people's ideas. It's not actually nothing is right or wrong, you know, and that's what businesses live in a lot of cases. That's what people live in.
Yeah.
That's what so that's sort of way I've always sort of thought that the chase for perfection in a lot of things is not there's no you get to a point where there's just no additional value. Like the additional value just it just craters, like compared to the actual cost of actually getting there in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So how do you fill that void? How do you feel like, yeah, well, it's intuition, it's experience, it's you know, a lot of that, a lot of CEOs, like if you think about it, like Satya Nadella, right? Like he doesn't know what's right. He's playing in the he's in the gray. He has doubts. He has doubts every day. He has doubts that he's getting it right. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
There's imperfection in what he's dealing with as well. He's just got a lot of experience, a lot of intuition, a lot of knowledge, a lot of learning, and that's how he's coming up with decisions. Like I bet. you know, I bet Microsoft has good analytics, but I bet you it's still a lot of intuition going on. Like I bet, like
Yeah,
I mean, I worked at the biggest company in New Zealand, and there's a lot of intuition going on there when I was there, and probably is still is today. But that's okay. That's okay. Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. Like it's just how the market and the economic position that you live in. Things
yeah.
evolve. Markets are very dynamic.
Well, if you think if it was all just about the analytics, then CEOs wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
That basically the organizations with the best analytics would always win, and it's not the case. That
yeah.
there is just there are some leaders and some CEOs that even though they're paid astronomical amounts, it's like they justify it based on judgment and the ability to synthesize data and experience and intuition, and it's just there's that kind of magic combination that it's kind of like you look at Apple and you know that's a different organization with Steve Jobs at the head of it. It just is.
Mm.
um
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'll bet their data analytics have gotten much better since then.
Oh yeah, it's true. It's sometimes it is kind of my little issue with the data industry actually is that um I call it the data industrial complex. Like there's just so much tooling that's just been layered on and layered on, and you're told you've got to do this, and you're told you've got to do that, and you got experts saying you've got to do this. When in reality, you could probably do pretty well with a lot less. You could probably get close enough to what you need. And I guess that's but not only in the data space is the tooling, like the teams have got bigger. The entire industry is just like bigger, 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 bigger. Um, everyone is incentivized to do more, analyze more, spend more, and in some cases it's just probably not worth it. But that's
Well, I
what
think
that's what
data is one of
it,
those
it's
things that
it's
adheres.
exactly the same with the military, right? There's always the incentive to do more and more and spend more and go to this war and go to that war, but like in some cases it's probably best to do less.
Yeah, well, I think data more than just about anything adheres to the Pareto rule, that you'll get
Yeah.
80% of the benefit from the first 20%.
Yeah. Yeah. I I 100% agree. And I've always sort of been that way. And it's also, I don't know, like from a personal perspective, I've kind of that's why I've kind of found the last few years in the Microsoft universe like harder than maybe initially, because initially it was very agile. It was like Power BI report, Power BI desktop, Power BI service. It was like sort of like felt a little bit more agile. It felt like you could bootstrap it a little bit more, but now it sort of became a bit more industrialized, if you get what I mean. And I sort of more struggled with that, and didn't really believe it, and still don't really actually still don't believe it as much as some others do. Um, because of the cost versus value, like in a lot of cases. And I think AI is sort of switching that a little bit. I think it is like, you can do a lot with a spreadsheet and an AI model now. Like you can do a lot. You can do a lot with just like an MCP connection into some database, right? Like so it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of flipping, which is cool. I think that's really, really good.
Well, I think, for both of us, it's like I think what attracted us to Power BI was the empowering the individual,
Yeah.
and I think, for me, Fabric just never crossed that border. I always felt like
Mhm.
that's like a corporate enterprise thing, and it just
Mm.
never caught with me because it's like, you know, I'm much more about, kind of the individual analytical thinker than, the
Mm.
enterprise of,
Mm.
large scale operation. And AI just feels it has that immediate feel of kind of being back to totally empowering the individual, kind of
Yeah.
putting this incredible brain and tool set just right in front of you and saying, go do with it what you will. And that
Yeah.
feels incredibly exciting.
Yeah, learn anything, do anything. Yeah, it's it's
Yeah.
it's it's sort of you were talking about the stack before. Like, I don't know, maybe the stack just expanded so much, right? Like it's just been one layer after the next layer, like the next thing you had to buy and you had to implement. But maybe it's like slapping it back down to, into less of a stack, like more dynamic of a stack, more, like you 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 create your stack per project now. It's like completely more agile.
And
Yeah,
so much
kind of,
more personal. Like my
yeah.
stack is going to be totally different from yours,
Mm,
even
mm,
though we have a tremendous amount of correspondence in the way we think about things, the way we
mm.
do things. And I guarantee when you line up what your configuration looks like versus mine, they're going to be really different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and mine is changing all the time too. Like now,
Oh,
like
yeah.
my latest, I mean, Claude Code didn't exist 6 months ago, and now I'm using Codex, Claude Code, and Cursor agents all in one go. Hey,
Right.
it's so it's so agile and evolving. New MCP layers are gonna, like, tools and connections are gonna open up more new things. You know what's the biggest opportunity is? We might have touched on this before. Um, Building, that context 7 that you just mentioned, they actually have a paid tier. So there's another opportunity is just like paid tiers for MCP connections into all of these tools. And one of the ideas that I have is, so we built this, I built this tool called Content Lead, and so we have it set up to send. You can send social media content, and schedule social media content into like 15 different platforms in one go. And so we've sort of built this in behind the scenes. It initially was going to be something outside of Enterprise DNA, but now I've sort of dragged it back into Enterprise DNA. But what I realized is that I think this should just be an MCP tool. This should mostly be an MCP tool. Imagine if you could craft your social media posts within, say, ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, and then with one call to the MCP client, you could send it to 15 different platforms and maybe even get it adjusted for all the different platforms. So imagine that. That's a pretty cool service, right? Like, I would pay for that. People would pay for that.
Yeah. And each one of those services is just a separate tool.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so this is actually what I've been thinking lately, as I've been reviewing and using MCP a little bit more, and then seeing that, so ChatGPT in the last couple of weeks actually opened up the developer mode so that you can actually do this yourself.
Right.
And like, this is just getting started. This is going to be huge. Like, everything that you want to do, you'll be able to do via these AI clients by just connecting, through having MCP connections. Like, even as something as complex as actually sending social media posts with images to different platforms. Like, even something as complicated as that.
Well, think about basically the bright data in reverse. That this
Yeah.
is this incredibly sophisticated, web scraper that has, 61 tools to say, okay, it'll scrape from Amazon, it'll scrape from LinkedIn, it'll scrape from, this news site, it'll scrape from, Markdown, it'll scrape from HTML. And all it's doing is it's routing the request to the right tool to scrape. All you're
Yeah.
doing is running that in reverse. You're saying, I've got information, I want to send it out to all these different sites, post it and transmit it in the way that's appropriate to the structure of that site. It's exactly the opposite. It's the mirror image of bright data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a perfect fit for MCP.
Totally. It totally is. Like, these, yeah. As I'm learning new things, I'm seeing new opportunities. It's all compounding on itself. It totally is. As I'm learning new skills and building new things and seeing how we can evolve enterprise DNA, getting into these new things. So it's coming together in my own mind, more. Even though, it's just like it is for individuals, and a lot of businesses. Everything, staying static and doing nothing is probably not the right strategy right now. Like,
Oh,
you got
yeah.
to evolve, and you got to think about doing new things. Like, this is big tech's doing this. Like, big tech is, I mean, Microsoft changed their home screen when you log in. Like, you now go to Copilot. Like everything is evolving and changing.
Yeah, static. That I don't know what the right place to be is, but the wrong place is just sitting where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Do you want to call it a day, Brian? I think I need to go
Yeah,
get some lunch, but
I gotta eat some
I
dinner.
loved our chat. I love it. It was so
Always do.
so good. So good. Just getting a few ideas, collaborating on our ideas. So good.
Yeah, I definitely want to circle back to some of these, next time because as I say, you really that last conversation really sparked some ideas and questions in my mind that I want to revisit with you.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Love to. Okay, good
All
stuff.
right.
Talk to you
Thanks,
later.
Sam.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye.